Welcome to the Creative Brew, helping you keep your creative juices brewing. We're giving out chunks of insight, motivation, and practicality for your creative journey. My next partner is Elevate Coffee Trading, and if you appreciate specialty coffee, enjoy outdoor adventure, and love helping elevate the lives of children around the world, then you're going to love Elevate Coffee Trading. Their mission is to extract hope through love, coffee, and adventures. There's free shipping in the United States, and every bag of coffee helps sponsor health and education for children in coffee-producing countries and in areas of need in the United States. You can use promo code ELEVATE21 on your next order, and you can follow their journey on social media at Elevate Coffee Trading. Or you can visit online at elevatecoffeetrading.com, and let's start extracting hope together. And this episode is brought to you by Boba Coffee, smuggling good vibes. Boba roasts their coffee beans each week and only offers the freshest coffee. They have espressos, lattes, cappuccinos, pour over, or drip coffee. You can try their cold brew coffee, nitro cold brew, or bulletproof coffee, and boba milk teas. They also have a wide assortment of delicious food. I would suggest you try the avocado toast, mimosas, wine, or beer. On the weekends, you can check out some great music like the Soto Six and food like Eliza the Shelf and others over the weekend, every Friday and Saturday, beginning at 6 p.m. You can check out everything they got going on Facebook and Instagram at Boba Coffee. And welcome to a new episode of the Creative Brew, giving you insights on your creative journey. Today, we have a special guest. We've got Preston Zeller with Zeller House. I had a chance to sort of chat with him previously, and like I said, had an awesome conversation. He's got an incredible story, especially for my creators, my entrepreneurs, even like the athletes that listen to this show. I think you're really going to enjoy this, and I think you'll really connect with this story and really the vision as far as what he wants to do and how he pursues it day by day. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of just practical know-how, and just like I said, he's going to give some tips as far as what you could do to sort of help build your own dream and vision. But without further ado, I'm gonna let Preston share his origin story, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, Quantel, thank you so much for having me on, and everyone who's going to be listening and joining us for this now or after. So, I guess a bit of my origin story. I've been an artist my whole life, and so primarily by way of music, but also a visual artist as well. And originally was in the film industry, and so did kind of the crew work, and then also predominantly went into business side of it, agency world. So anyone who's watched Entourage, where Ari Gold works, I worked in that kind of environment. I was a mailroom guy too, but eventually got out of that and pivoted really hard, much more into just like marketing, online products, info products, all that kind of stuff. So this is 2010. When I switched to that, and was just fascinated by all the tools that were coming out then that allowed you to, measure your online activity and advertise more effectively in SEO and marketing automation, what that meant, and just kind of putting my arms around that. Got to work with some really great people in the meantime, in your neck of the woods, actually, right? So I was in La Jolla and Oceanside, Carlsbad for a good amount of time, and eventually ended up in Washington for a period. And so then about 10 years ago, I got into like the high growth SaaS space. And so just, software as a service. And, that's this whole time I was kind of like refining my artistry, and I was launching my own products, and I would act as the, brand designer for a lot of things, whether it was my own or I was being hired professionally to do it in the agency world, and a guy on the inside. And so I got to see the client side and also the internal work as well, or the agency side, and just like nonstop, pursuing passion projects and then the internal work. And I think we talked about this in our last conversation, just like you need to have this space where you get to experiment and iterate, and how important that is, because inevitably, unless you're just like that much in demand in that very top percentile where you can make basically whatever you want, you're going to have a certain amount of client work that just has guardrails on it. And that is what it is.
Yeah.
So I kept pursuing that. Along the way, I got caught up a bit in like, I had a young family, married, 3 kids. And so I'm like, I am going to provide as much financially for them as possible. And my wife was stay-at-home mom and taking care of the kids. So 2019, though, about 7 years ago, almost to the day here, my brother passed away. And so that sent me into a huge, like, what am I doing with my life? Am I being driven by the right things? And I have a whole faith component in this too, that's really important for me in Christianity. But I just realized how kind of on autopilot I was. And so that set off, since then, this pursuit of really understanding, where does my faith lay in all this? Where does creativity, pursuit and aspirations, all the things, existential crisis all the time. And the project that really kind of accelerated me into that was, I was an abstract painter. I had gotten back into painting at the time. I gravitated towards abstract, and I had done that in graphic design world as well. I set out this project. I literally wrote it in a journal one day. I took a trip to Arizona, and I said, paint one painting every day for a year and make a documentary about it. So 2 like really loaded goals. That was just, okay, I don't know what all this is going to look like, but I'm going to just write it down. And it's just like the power of writing something down like that for me was really impactful. So of course I had to start with the painting, and we can get more into that too, but that did end up happening, both those things, not without their fair share of bumps along the way. 2022 was when the documentary was finally able to get released. Didn't know what that was going to look like either until it finally was basically released, or I had the film I could market to a distributor, and it started getting picked up by all these different platforms. And so that's called The Art of Grieving. You can go check that out, but it's on most major streaming platforms. And even just the reception of that, putting myself out there in this like really weird cross section of grief and my personal paintings around grief that are abstract too. So even more so, like, there's people who hate abstract and they're going to be like, it's a little too out there for me. Or just, it's, I was actually on a creative note, I was trying to buck the system of how we'll just put our best work out there, or often tend to, right, in a portfolio, which makes sense. I get when you're recruiting clients. But a lot of painters and artists do that too, when it's just like, oh, here's my finished work. And I'm like, no, I'm giving you all the paintings I don't like, which sure enough, there are many paintings in there people have purchased or expressed that they like that I don't. They just came out of the creative process. But yeah, so beyond that documentary, I went back into tech and stuff. And along that way, I really started to think about, of course, what is the information I consume and the thoughts that I have that are leading me to kind of make any kind of life decisions. Now, you mentioned athletes too. I mean, that's a huge one. I do endurance events also, and we've talked about martial arts, but man, when you're training hard for, as an athlete and you go compete, you're going to have those times too, where you're like, why am I doing this again? You got to connect to like such a more profound purpose other than just I'm after the medal or the award or the podium placement. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, again, fast forward to today, I now build different productivity apps. And so it's either a cross section of business or faith or those kinds of things under my primary brand Zeller House. So yeah.
That's great. That's awesome, man. It's definitely a couple of good points that you really talked about was really sort of getting yourself out there and like putting stuff out there. I think sometimes we tend to keep our what we call imperfections or our
Yeah.
work that we don't feel like is good enough, and I feel like there's an audience for everyone. If you put it out there, there's someone out there that's gonna like your stuff. Someone loves abstract. There's gonna be someone that loves such and such. So yeah, I think that's been the sometimes the biggest resistance, especially with creators, is like feeling like, nah, I'm just gonna put out my best stuff and put it out. And
Mm,
sometimes it's like some of the like crazy ideals or just like dumb ideals that like blossom into something awesome. Um, yeah, definitely some great points. And that's just something that I think people do need to hear. And understanding that, and even with you were courageous enough to explore and to do something that's you know a little off the track a little bit. Especially with I know there's a lot of brand designers and graphic designers and stuff that I know that they tend to sort of stay in their lane, and
mm,
they do agency work or contract or freelance work, and but really like making yourself explore and doing something different that you don't know where it's gonna gonna end up.
yeah.
With the documentary, was that, I know we talked a little bit about it, was that something that you felt like you needed to put out regardless of like what audience picks it up?
Yeah. I started out with this sort of more broad notion of and what I observed, and I talk about this in the documentary a bit, just as a setup there. I had an art show, and this is in Washington, and I had a ton of different paintings in this art show, and quite a few of those in the like the front space, because it went meandered down into different spaces, were paintings that I had worked on for, I think up to that point, probably like 5 months, that were all of course, abstract depictions of me in grief. And they were abstract enough where there was a lot of symbolism in there, but it wasn't like Jackson Pollock abstract. They were actually based around shapes.
Yeah.
And shapes and dressing up shapes in different ways, and the shapes meant different things to me. And so people would walk around that room, and they come to their own. I love to see what conclusions people come to as to what they're getting out of it. Not guessing why I made it, but what they're getting out of it. And then they'd ask, okay, what is this? And I just kept storytelling these pieces of, the grief I was going through. And I started noticing that people in some cases that I knew well started sharing really deep stories of loss that I had never heard from them before. And that light bulb went off there for me in terms of, hey, if I could use my own painting process and how I'm moving through the early days of grief to then share that with other people, maybe it'll get them to open up to themselves, to whoever they need to about grief. And then, so that's sort of where the idea originally came from. And so in the process of that, I kept getting confirmation of that along the way, where even when I first announced this project on Instagram, and then people start following along and they start commenting on them, and they start saying, I see this. Oh, your brother passed away. So-and-so passed away. I see this in the painting. And just starting this conversation. And I think just the vulnerability at the end of the day that I think especially for men, can be hard to have, because it's like, you got to put up a front and we're stoic and all these things. So being vulnerable in whatever the creative work is, which we have to be as artists, and that's kind of the challenge of AI creating, in a way, as you go, well, what's the human soul behind the creative work? So yeah, the documentary always made sense to me from the standpoint of if my creative process and all the other things that went into the documentary could be helpful for someone else to inspire them to be creative, that's a huge win. And it's been so much more than that along the way.
That's great. So with the documentary, do you feel like that the catalyst for you to like build Zeller House, or I didn't know if you built that before you did the documentary?
No, I think, I'm not much different from most people in the sense that you start something and you learn from it, and then you kind of build on that and you build on that, right? And you go, oh, I could do this, or I could do this. And there's a scene in the very beginning of the documentary that when I think about that moment, it's right after we hang up all the paintings. So for those listening, right, there's 365 paintings. Those got assembled, sort of rearranged, not chronologically, but rearranged into an entirely separate abstract image. So a mosaic that I wanted to rearrange in a way that made me feel like depicted grief. So in my house, we brought in a scissor lift, spend a couple days hanging it, arranging all the paintings. I had to build a massive frame on this wall, of course, the lights, like it's kind of wild. But when it was all done, it was the accumulation of a year and a half, I think actually almost 2 years to that point after my brother died. And I'm sitting there on the scissor lift looking at this, and it just made me think about what's possible. And in that moment, really, it was just like a large art installation, but it was so much more than that for me because I had been stewing on this for so long. So after that, then, documentary gets edited and all this kind of stuff. But that one moment in particular made me go, what is possible if I just don't put possible in a box? And so that's led me to be more bold and certainly goals I make for myself. And not that I hit every one of those. Like I've been doing high rocks and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a high rocks in a certain amount of time. And I don't get close because I'm just not physically there.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I failed, but at least I like pursued it and set a goal and worked through the hard things. So yeah, I think Zeller House it's part of, accumulation of professional experiences, but also the deeply personal projects that I've pursued that weren't, I knew the commercial value was questionable, but it fed me in a different way. And I think especially creative people have those. And athletes too. I mean, most people aren't making a living off being, physically fit. It's just a personal choice.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's interesting, right? And I do like that. I might have to tell my my wrestling team, don't put possible in a box. I like that. I like that. That's sometimes those are great questions to ask. I mean, sometimes we feel like, especially if we're trying to build something or try to create something, sometimes we just don't ask the right questions. And with something like that could open up things that probably you already have the capabilities of. It's just asking the right question to get the right framing to be able to look at something at a different light. I like that. I think I'm gonna have to say that my I took this from my podcast. Yes,
you use it. Well, if I could share one kind of like anecdote in the whole documentary process that was really kind of, I think part of life, of course, is navigating all the little things that change along the way. But when I first came up with the documentary, this is 2019. So in my mind, I had this sort of idea of what the format was going to be. And part of that, the initial intent was to do this reveal in like a warehouse almost with an audience, and then interview the people afterwards. And that was going to be the final, that was going to be the culmination of it, to really illustrate the impact the artwork can have and people reflecting. I was trying to recreate in a way that experience I had in the art show. Well, it's like, we all know what happened in 2020 and beyond that. And I was doing it all during that time. It's like, I had just moved to Texas. The likelihood of me getting into a public space was basically zero. And beyond that was just like, I couldn't network during that time very well. So I had to drastically change what the outcome of that was going to be. And that's actually how we ended up putting it in my house. That wasn't the goal. I remember wrestling with that idea. Like, what the heck? I have to do this documentary. I have to have an ending. What is it going to look like? And so I came up with the idea for a scissor lift. I don't remember how that came about. I think I was just staring at this wall one day and I told my wife, I said, hey, I think I'm going to bring a scissor lift in the house. And so she's like, what is that again? And I showed her a picture. She's like, you're going to bring that in the house, you know? But, you know, I could have very well said, hey, I'll make that later. And I wouldn't have gotten around to it. And I just forced it kind of into that mold. And it ended up working out in some ways probably better than it would have otherwise. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, especially yeah, even what you're saying, like, yeah, it was easy. First of all, how did you even your wife signed off on that, bringing a suit? That was,
Yeah, I think we've been together long enough. She's like, well, you're probably going to do what you want to do anyways. So
yeah.
just make sure our house doesn't fall down or something, you know?
Yeah, I think what you mentioned, you know, just talking about like doing it, like you easily could have done that later. I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff
Yeah.
going on, but probably 90%. I'm going to say 99% of the people that said I'll do it later ends up they keep pushing it, keep pushing it, keep
Yeah.
pushing it, and
Life happens.
yeah, I mean that's me included. I mean, I know there's projects I'm working on, and I've been trying to make myself like, look, let's just work on one small thing today. Don't care what it is, don't care how ugly it is, because I could easily say, oh, I've got these client projects. Let's push this till tomorrow, or you know, I've got my little project management thing. I'll just slide that project over, and sure enough, it'll be December. And like I took no steps towards this. So yeah, definitely making. Actually, got a project I'm working on right now. It's like a sort of a compilated art book. Well, it's a volume 2, and there's a specific sort of a story graphic novel that I've been trying to work on. Actually, I've created the characters for this probably over about 20 years. Like I started drawing these characters like when I was maybe high school, and they developed over the course of time, and so I'm working on this art book, and my wife was like, "Well, when are you gonna get this book out? When are you gonna get it out?" And I've got all this artwork, promo artwork, and everything for it. And I was like, "Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put just like a 10-page teaser of the book in the art book. So there's no way I can get around it. Like I have to finish this. I have to put that in there to even finish the art book. So I'm making myself put those." Not necessarily limitations, but I'm making myself like I'm burning the bridges. Like I have to put something in there. I can't just have empty pages, so I've got to put something in there to finish the book. So, yeah, that's really been a not really tough, but it's really forced me to be like, look, just put it out there. Just it doesn't have to be perfect yet. Just put it out there. You can change things later. So yeah, definitely forcing even doing stuff like that is really forcing me how I see a lot of my work, and then even like coaching too, like feeling like just getting those athletes to be able to perform and don't worry about like the results per se. Just like, hey, let's just fine tune, let's just work on the process, let's work on just being ready for that moment, and if things happen, then it happens. Yeah, that's some great points. I know I have to constantly like sort of tell myself like if I say it later, sure enough, I get washing clothes, washing the dishes. I was like, oh, I'll do it later, and it gets pushed to like the next day. So yeah,
I mean, that's a easy thing to do, but I think, like you said too, then you come up with new ideas, especially if that's like, if you're an idea person, and not everyone is, where they're just brimming all the time with new ideas, which is fine. Some people are just really good at the execution side, but I think a lot of creatives, it's always brain swirling with, new things and then you have the half done projects everywhere, but it's the whole done is better than perfect, and because there is no perfect. I love listening to times past interviews with musicians or something like that, and they'll go, yeah, we re-recorded this part so many times and we listened to it on the live album, and you always have something that you hear in the live album and go, man, if we would have just fixed that one thing, but then you would have never been done. And there's always going to be something that is a little off for whatever reason, but like nobody hears or notices those things that we do as like in your own creative work. I mean, I can for sure, I think myself and you and most creatives included, there's something that you go, oh, but that one little thing, for whatever reason, it just kind of gets at you. Yeah.
Sometimes that could eat me up. I sit there and like look at something and be like, I should have switched this color, or I was like, I don't like the placement on this, and I am forcing myself to like just enjoy the process more than the actual part, because people enjoy it regardless. They love seeing people make things and create it, and if it's little things here or there that's messed up, then that's part of the masterpiece. It could be tough at times, but I am learning just to let that resistance go. Just put it out there. Just put it out there. So right now with the I know we talked about you're trying to combine technology with faith. Sometimes that could be a disconnect for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Keep those separate. For you, I trying to say how I would question that, but like, why merge the two?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think there's definitely a you can make an argument that it's like, oh, things are they're fine the way they are. They've been functioning for as long as they have, and man, I keep going back to the Gutenberg press example, and I don't remember if we talked about this, but it would have been, I mean, for what, 1,500 years up to that point, whatever it was, longer than that, all the way up until the Gutenberg press, it was just handwritten scrolls or manuscripts. And so I just think about whatever it was, but I'll use the church context. There were a lot of downsides to scripture not being readily available to people, because in the wrong hands, you can manipulate. It's like people, verse taken out of context, people don't have the scripture to go verify, all that kind of stuff. I mean, even you go back to Jesus' time, the kind of most vicious people were the Pharisees, who had access to all the information because they thought they knew it all.
Yeah.
So, I guess my point about the Gutenberg press is like, that was an incredibly innovative technology that opened up access for people in many ways. So, I think in a similar sense in that time frame, and I look, these are I think healthy assumptions, but if the notion had been, well, what if people misprint the Bible? What if people make new translations of the Bible that we don't want? What if there's a typo? Like all the potential things you could have in a printing press. If the argument was like, well, we're not going to do it, then the proliferation of Bible printing would have been like, it wouldn't have happened, or it happened in a very limited way. And I realize that they're not the same technologies, but the biggest concern, of course, is like, what happens when improper information gets given? And that is a valid point and concern. But that's been happening for thousands of years too.
Yeah.
You got people look at the same text and someone runs off with a piece of it and goes, but I'm going to magnify this piece. And so people have been the worst offenders of mistranslating and misinterpreting stuff for a long, long time. I guess that all comes back to, I don't think it, at this point, it's like not a matter of technology. Like, is someone going to do it? Because it's already happening. It's a matter of, okay, well, you know, whatever your belief system is, do you want to get someone who really intimately understands how it can be used on a human level and for that belief system, and then being able to do it in an ethical way versus, you know, if you had a whatever apps, let's say a Buddhist app, you know, you'd probably want someone who was like very well read in Buddhism to go, well, they understood how to make this in such a way where it served us best.
Mhm.
So I in some ways, I don't think the time we're in is much different than many other ones. Radio put people on distribution to right in people's homes that would have never been there. And then television did a similar thing, and then the internet. So all these technological advancements are, I think, just naturally scary at first because it changes the paradigm of how we function. But then somebody's got to come in and go, okay, well, this is how we can use it. And there's going to be a lot of perspectives there. I mean, I'm one, obviously.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So what do you feel like as far as maybe for you, like what are your goals with, you know, with everything you're trying to build with, you know, with Zeller House?
Yeah, I mean, with Zeller House in general, my aim is to build productivity apps that are touching a variety of different problems that I see in like workflows and things like that to help people be more efficient. Mm-hmm. And hopefully have a, you know, positive community around that. From a business building standpoint, be more ethical. I mean, we've all been around our fair share of greed. So how do you build and not be greedy in the process? And that's not to say money is bad. You know, it's love of it that I think gets people into, you know, tricky situations.
Yeah.
For SOUNDCLOUD in particular, it's really part of the notion is about pulling people out of isolation. Like it's so easy for people to just be relegated to their devices, and that's something I'm working on building out is like how to, you know, based on, you know, whatever it is you're kind of going through, being able to plug you into a, you know, good ministry that's going to help address that, bring you into community. But let's say you're around a group of people, like your friend group. I'll just take like a very extreme example, but if you're a bank robber and all your friends are bank robbers and you start to go, or you're in the mob, right? And you're like, I don't know about this anymore. You may not go to your other friends and go, we should get out of this. Michael Franzese is like one of the only guys that got out of the mob, you know, because the Italian mob. And I think that there are people who come up against that, and then then if you're gravitating towards the Bible, you may not know where to go, and a lot of people don't. And so if it's like, hey, you're able to like work through some of these thoughts you have, the 2 a.m. thoughts or whatever they are, and you just don't know where to go, that's part of the issue with it. Because man, we are not meant to live in isolation and without community. That's a really sad thing that I think tried to get normalized in many ways during the 2020 time period, but we need relationships.
Oh yeah. That sort of that 2020 era, that was rough for a lot of people. And that I think mentally, socially, emotionally, that set people back some years.
Yeah.
You know, being able to heal, and people are still sort of traumatized by that, especially you know, younger kids. I know I'm dealing with, you know, college kids that sort of dealt when it was around that 2020 era and is still dealing with how to, you know, create relationships, how to like get back and, you know, actually speak to their teachers and so yeah, it's rough. It's rough and it's bad because I know Western civilization, society, we you know, sometimes we really don't take like relationships or community not as much as what it is like in other countries, but they value it a little bit more. I know even in I know with Japan, they have their their villages. Even with like the elderly, they have their own little villages and communities that
Yeah.
they're really really serious about, and helps with their longevity too as well. And I think just they don't I mean, I don't know if, I'm sure they may understand it, we just don't value it. And
Mm.
knowing that like those relationships, that's what purpose and relationships and creativity and all these those things, that's what keeps us alive, and that's what keeps us pursuing in life, and makes life what it is, like learning how to
Yeah.
experience that and how to connect. And perhaps, like I said, with your app, and there's a lot of people too that's up at 2 o'clock in the morning with questions all the
Yeah.
time. I know I've personally spoken to a lot of um, military to fighters to athletes, and they have burning questions. They have questions that they dwell on a daily basis and keeps them up at night.
Yeah.
So definitely having an app like this could be really good for people's development, and at least getting them on the right path to like, okay, let's searching out knowledge.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's listening is like, well, how's this different than like Chat GPT or something? It's Chat GPTs and any of those, they're very open ended, and it's going to tend to like agree with you, push you down a route that you know may not be really what you're after, or maybe present this like conglomeration of different ideas from very different belief systems. That's something that you got to decide. Like, is that you're comfortable with or okay with? And I do think it is interesting on the sort of when I've talked about like grief specifically, because like grief is, of course, not just it's not just loss of life, right? It's other things. Like there's a lot of kids probably grieving what they lost in that 2020 time period, and I think part of why America and specifically is so weird about grief is, like you said, other cultures. I was in Italy in October for like a month, and you look at the way that most of the towns are built, and it's like clustered close together. You're not like suburbia,
Mm-hmm.
as much bedroom communities, and it's like a really amazing thing that there's been a lot of assimilation here to this new sort of American identity, right? But in the process, like wherever our families were originally from, like you lose that over time.
Yeah.
So if you had cultural traditions around how to handle burial of the dead, that you may totally lose that. And then definitely there's like the whole idea, not idea, it just happens that we sort of export the last phase of life to adult care facilities. And I'm not saying that's a difficult time, not a difficult time, but we're just detached from a lot of that, hyper individualistic.
Mm-hmm.
And there's good things about that, and also potentially negative things that we're not as connected to the totality of the human experience either. So I think it's a tricky thing, because it's the whole, I want to have your cake and eat it too, with all the individuality, but then also I'm going to have trouble maybe relating to you because, well, I'll just shut that door or that chat or that side of my life because I'm only going to, live in the lane I've created for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I hope that made sense.
Oh, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, that's going to be an ongoing struggle. I know the more the older I get, the more that I value more community and relationships.
Mm,
And not to say I don't have like a lot. I mean, I know a lot of people, but definitely I like having that little circle of sort of lifelong friends that's that's going to be on that journey with you, and knowing that people are going to come and go. Um, but definitely having that community, having those relationships. I find myself wanting to um, speak more to older people,
mm,
getting getting their wisdom, how they see life, um, talking to children more,
mm.
sort of saying what they're how they see it. Maybe they see it with just clear eyes right now, and how they view certain things. I've found myself recently being intrigued by that, and sort of figuring out, like, especially while we're on this path of life, sometimes we just, like, for a lot of people, we sort of go head down, and we feel like we're supposed to hit these goal marks, and then by the time we get to a certain age, we're like, I hadn't even experienced life. Like what was this all for? And so I know I'm trying my best to not necessarily say I'm ambitious. I love creating, I love building, but understanding too that there's so much more to life, and being able to have access to wisdom, like your app, and being able to, like, hey, if I feel like I'm struggling with something, I know I can. We got everything at the palm of our hand. Like, being able to download that app and search for that wisdom and getting that connection, and maybe allowing myself to sort of see things in a different light. Being very intrinsic, being able to get that inner wisdom. So ChatGPT, it'll agree with everything that you say.
Right.
You're like, yes, you are the best. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it knows. It's taking into account all that context to go, wait, what about this idea? What about that idea? I mean, I think by going back to the creative process for a sec, because I know it's something we were talking about a bit before too, on how easy it is to not just overthink the release of the creative work, but the process of it as well. And not to say you check your brain at every single phase of the creative process, right? But we've all creative block. You go, wow, okay, I have this brief in front of me, or I have this idea, but it's just kind of ending there. And it's it's sort of the whole work. When you don't work on the thing, that's where you get your ideas. When I'm not sitting here, that's actually where I get my best ideas. That's why I love hiking. I love just like general working out too, but hiking in particular, I'm not, grinding through sets or something like that. You're just in nature, whatever that is for you. It could just be a walk around the block. Like, I really look at being in front of a computer more as, okay, it's time to execute on the ideas than it is to come up with the ideas. So whatever that is for you, I think can be a strong one to go after. I don't know how you think about that kind of stuff, but
no, yeah, yeah, dead on. I mean, like I said, I love me and my wife. We usually go on sort of morning walks at the beach, and for me, I mean, if you like happen to see a lot of my work, like a lot of it is related to like the rocks on the beach, and like anytime that I see like the way that the water sort of hits the beach and the rocks, like, to me, like, I'm all like automatically, I'm like, oh, this would be a cool scene for like some alien movie trailer or something like that if I do a zoom in.
Yeah.
So like that's what, so I'll take like all kinds of pictures of just people walking, or just surfers, or just different rocks, how the light hits, and I'm like, oh, this would be cool for a certain scene. And a lot of times I'll end up using that for a lot of my illustrations and stuff. So definitely, like, anytime I'm having, like, even if I'm working on a brand identity project, the client comes to me, and I'm just thinking about ideals. Like, usually I'll go on a walk. I'll sit there and just like, well, me and my wife will chat, and I'll think, but I won't like think too hard on it. And normally by the time we get done, it's like, oh, I got a good idea for this. I love getting out in nature, breathing. Being able to watch the surfers. Generally, like, that's where I get my inspiration from.
Watching on the beach. Watching the beach, watching the water, watching the surfers.
Yeah. I'll sometimes we'll where we're at, because we got the strand down there. So a lot of times we'll walk, and normally we can see the beach line, and we can see the surfers, and depending on what kind of waves they got, usually they got some pretty nice waves, and or sometimes it's just quiet, and they're just out there just waiting, and like, for me, that's more like meditative than anything else. I'm like, just seeing them sort of patient and calm, and sort of just waiting for that wave, and or like we have our king tides that come in, and we got water coming over the wall and stuff like that, and sort of seeing how just that interplay with the water and the rocks, and so yeah, and we go rock collecting too, so I'm always like looking for like little specific rocks, and So like all that stuff is like it just sort of fuels my brain like, oh, this would be cool for something, or I can see a scene like maybe these big monoliths, and maybe it's like a portal to another dimension or something like that. So
Hmm.
so normally like people will be like, well, what like where'd you get this from? I was like, I these are directly taken from the beach. Like I taking pictures, and I'm like, this is my inspiration. So yeah, I love like being out there, and it just like I said, it just for me it fuels me for a lot of the things that I do, and it gives me the scenery for like everything that I'm imagining because I can see it in my mind. I'll sit there and look at it like, oh, this is cool, and then I'll take a picture of it, and then I'll use it for something. But yeah, that's my inspiration.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and even, I find that sometimes you get out into wherever that inspiration is, and maybe it's not the actual environment, but that environment just sparks ideas that, when your brain's connecting dots and jumping around different thoughts, um, and those thoughts that you end up at, those visuals that are a culmination of, different experiences, those can be great too. But yeah, just getting out into somewhere inspirational, and not feeling bad about it too, in the sense of it, just because you're sitting in front of, a computer for a lot of us doesn't mean that you're being productive.
Yeah. Yep.
You could sit there and be really fumbling through work going, man, I could really shortcut this. Even just, a lot of people change scenery.
Yeah.
I'm going to go work at a co-working coffee shop, outside, on the beach with your laptop. Sometimes that helps too.
Yeah. So before we sign off, what are some just a creative tips for our audience?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a modality of exploring your creativity where you can just shut off all the expectations, and also be okay with you may throw this away.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
One of my favorite things this person ever told me is that she's like, the work that you think is the best will often not be the work that people like. And I remember her saying that, and I was like, man, really? I've often found that to be true. I mean, especially with like creative works. I've again had people purchase work or comment on it where I go, what do you see in this? So I think that's why it's important not to censor yourself so much, because if you're putting out a volume of work, I get client work's a little different, but maybe you make a version that you think's your decoy in the client work, and then they go, I love that. And you're like, wow, okay, well, I guess that's the one, right? Like it's sort of like you and creatives. I'll speak for myself. I have found in my process that there's an insistence on wanting to be right in my creative opinion versus here's the spectrum of variations and what works.
Mhm.
So anyways.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Words of wisdom. Whatever. Like I said, I know we've been talking a lot about you gotta lay about faith and wisdom and
Yeah.
creativity and technology. For people that's listening or people that will listen to this episode, what are some words of wisdom that would resonate with their hearts and minds and spirits?
Yeah, well, first and foremost for me is like, I think the Bible has answers to a lot of things you're going through. I think know that I think from a spiritual standpoint, I don't think God's not distant. Like he's waiting for you to reach out to him. So ask God to reveal himself through whatever situation it is you're going through. Like, what do you have to lose? Even if you're an atheist, like, be like, show yourself to me, in whatever way that is. But I think otherwise, having people who are smarter, wiser than you, and getting that counsel is really important too, no matter what age you are. There's a reason why an 80-year-old will call a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old like a whippersnapper, It's sort of like, yeah, but you're still not older than me. You are not where I am. So I try to surround myself with some kind of much wiser counsel than me that I can call on, especially in a really hard circumstance, to get input. And I've always found that to be helpful.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So before we sign off, how can people reach out to you, get connected with you, download the app, everything you got going on? What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, so LinkedIn's where I'm most active. So just, look for Preston Zeller on LinkedIn. SOUNDCLOUD is in the App Store on Apple and Android, of course. And then if you want to see other projects I'm working on, I have if you develop mobile apps that help you do competitive strategy, you can find all that on zellerhouse.com. Haus is how you say that. But yeah, otherwise you can find me in other places too. Those are the main spots where you'll see me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, hey, this has been another great episode with me, with Preston. This is awesome. Like I said, this is if you get a chance to listen to this, like I said, a great mix of really a lot of different things. So I for people that love faith, that love creativity, learning how to go through the process of grieving. Like, this was a really cool episode. I really feel like anyone that's listening right now or will listening, you're really going to enjoy this. And then get a chance to download the app. So you're looking for knowledge, looking for wisdom. It's at the palm of your hand. So you might as well download the app, check it out. So I'll put that in the show notes too as well, and how to get connected with Preston. So once again, Preston, thank you for hopping on to the show. I appreciate it. Thank you for, like I said, sharing your insights, sharing your wisdom. And I am gonna make sure that I focus on, like, hey, what was it again? If it wasn't possible, or how did you?
Don't put possible in a box.
Yes, don't put possible in a box. So I'm gonna remember that the rest of the week, going into next week. Don't put possible in a box.
Yeah, I love it.
So thank you, Preston. Thank you for jumping onto the show. And once again, this is the Creative Brew. Be creative, stay inspired. We gotta come together now, cause I had enough. The time is now, there'll never be another one. It's the SOUNDCLOUD.